As the festive season approaches, we are well in the middle of the festive season, the air buzzes with excitement and consumers open their wallets for celebratory purchases. For brands, this period represents a golden opportunity, but also a formidable challenge. How do brands stand out in an increasingly competitive market while creating meaningful connections with consumers? What strategies ensure they not only capture attention, but also foster loyalty in a season driven by emotion and tradition? Well, today we speak to Tshepo Matseba, a seasoned brand specialist, to uncover insights into festive season spending trends and the innovative approaches brands are employing to secure their market share. And he joins us now virtually. Tshepo, a very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Good morning, Simply. Thank you for inviting me.
It's an absolute pleasure, man. And first of all, how does the festive season influence consumer spending habits in South Africa?
Oh, yeah, I think generally it's a season of excitement, especially the next coming 8 days towards the 30th of the year. People traditionally get paid early on in advance, and they start spending as early as possible because we want to be with our family, we want to travel home, and we want to travel home with packages, little packages, gifts. Yeah. We want to entertain ourselves, and that's just the vibe and the nature of the vibrant Mzansi that people generally during this time, much like elsewhere in the world, we're very happy, we're very excited, and we make very, very emotionally charged decisions about money, but also we create amazing experiences as individuals, as families, as friends. And indeed, even as employers, companies are taking people out, also providing and spending on gifts. So it's very fascinating season, especially for retailers.
And I'm actually glad you touched on the issue of making emotionally charged decisions. So what are some of the effective ways that brands can build emotional connections with consumers during the festive season? I mean, the reason I'm asking this is that, as you mentioned, we tend to make emotional decisions and not thinking about tomorrow. And especially January becomes arguably the longest month of the year.
Yeah, I think brands that are going to create a sustainable connection with their consumers are those that are authentic, and are also able to tell the consumer the truth proactively, so as to spend, but also spend responsibly. So in a sense, brands that try not to get consumers into unnecessary debt, try to understand the preferences of consumers and keep insights about the person that you are dealing with. For example, someone would have already said, but I do not have a vehicle, but an insurance company would continue to offer them specials during the festive season. Right. Someone will say, I'm already committed with another mobile service provider for my contract over the next 2 years, so don't make that offer. But brands that are not authentic continue to sell blindly, and actually even not abiding by the principles of the Consumer Protection Act, principles of the personal protection of personal information. But also worse are brands that make promises that they can't keep. For example, you try to log on to a website to book a day visit to a certain place in the Lost City Northwest, and you realize that even today they are still talking about specials for the Nedbank Golf Challenge, which is now a thing of the past. So brands have to move with the time, move with speed, and if you make specials, make sure that the promise that you make online, on TikTok, on X, on Facebook, on Instagram, that those promises are a reality when a customer walks into the store, so that there's not a mismatch between what you promise in the proposition of communication and advertising and what happens in the reality in the store.
Tshepo, just how important is cultural relevance in brand messaging during this time? And I ask again, how can brands ensure they remain authentic?
Yeah, so I mean, in South Africa, if we talk about cultural relevance, South Africa, overall, the majority of people would appreciate the principle of Christmas because we are truly predominantly a Christian nation. But as you sell and distribute products, you also have to be sensitive that you still have other customers, and therefore it might be better to talk about festive seasons. It might be better to talk about festivities and lifestyle as opposed to overly invested in religion, because you might actually, in the process of that exercise, lose other customers who are not necessarily believers of a particular religion. But culture, I think, is very important, and context, I think, far more than culture, is far more important. For example, if you are going to engage with a consumer in a traditionally charged environment, such as Limpopo, for example,
Yes.
or in KwaZulu-Natal, you may want to actually, in your communication messaging, be sensitive to the environment, be sensitive to the common law practices that are not necessarily written in law or written in the media. So in a sense, to avoid creating misunderstanding or being misunderstood. So the appreciation that we live in a diverse society. I mean, South Africa is really, really a diverse society. And so those cultural dynamics are very important, especially because brands that come across like they are not reading the room, that they are tone deaf, and they are not authentic, will not survive in a complex market such as South Africa.
And most festive season campaigns are always laden with images of Father Christmas and Christmas trees, even for cultures and religions that do not necessarily ascribe to such. I mean, can you give us examples of campaigns that successfully resonated with South African consumers during the festive period?
Yeah, I mean, sure. We have a plethora, I think, of campaigns. I think the tourism companies are getting it right in creating a compelling proposition for anybody. When you look at the kind of offers that you receive from hotels, those chains, and the extent to which the proposition that is presented by KwaZulu-Natal, despite the difficulties as a province that they've had in terms of climate change, in terms of the volume of difficulties with crime in that environment, and they're able to sell Durban and KwaZulu-Natal as a unique value proposition. And I think that the province itself, perhaps together in terms of private and public partnership, I think they've been able to carry a consistent message that is inviting, that tells a story, and that brings a proposition that attracts people to still go and want to drive, to fly into the province of KwaZulu-Natal. For me, that has been quite appealing, especially understanding that the environment in KZN has not been from a cleanliness point of view in the last 2-3 years has not been easy one, given the weather patterns there. But I think they've been able to capture the market, and people are still persisting to go to KwaZulu-Natal. If you look at the numbers, it's just beautifully amazing.
All right, Tshepo, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your insights with us.